Hey guys, in this week's episode, we are going to be talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. But before that, we're talking about Bergman Island and Old Henry. So, join us!
Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. Mike, today I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite pizza topping, and why is it licorice?
You just got to try it, I guess.
It's true.
It sounds like it might be disgusting, but apparently it's my favorite.
There's a lot of foods.
Actually, truthfully, it's a really boring answer, and the answer is pepperoni.
Yeah.
Or cheese. Sometimes I don't even like a topping.
Just cheese. Cheese is a topping, right? Like, otherwise it'd just be tomato sauce on bread.
It wouldn't be pizza then, I guess. So I guess for pizza, cheese is implied, I think.
Okay.
Usually.
Yeah. Justin is also with me here. Same question.
Well, it depends. I think if I'm getting like pepperoni, like a regular pizza, I like to try to get mushrooms on there if I can. That's probably my preferred. But if I'm with someone who doesn't eat meat, which I've been before in a certain stages of my life, ate a lot of pizza with people who don't eat meat, and our go-to was pineapple and feta cheese on a pizza, and that's real good.
Interesting. You know, I grew up vegetarian, and my favorite topping as a vegetarian was just black olives. I thought that was pretty delicious.
Nice.
Gross.
Nice. And that's what everybody's reaction is. But when you're vegetarian, you don't have many choices, man.
Exclusively black olives is kind of gross. Black olives, among other things, like if I had pepperoni, mushroom bell pepper, and black olive or something like that, that'd be great. I'm down for that.
That sounds like a chaotic pizza to me.
Just black olives. That's black olives and extra cheese.
Need that extra
Anyways.
cheese. Okay.
Casual pizza.
Yeah, if this is your first time listening, goodness gracious, I'm so turned around right now in these notes. Okay, if this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about film and TV news, or usually just the film and TV that we have been watching. Then we move into our feature review. This week, like I said at the top of the show, we are discussing Licorice Pizza.
That's right. And also here on the Casual Cinecast, every other week or just about every other week, depending on how much like new stuff is coming out, how much cool stuff we'd rather talk about, we like to put out Casually Criterion episodes. In these episodes, the listeners choose a film from the Criterion Collection for us to review by voting in a poll that we put out on our Twitter account. So look forward to our next Criterion poll. Follow us on Twitter. Check out our last Criterion episode, which was on a little film called Bull Durham. And also check out our back catalog where there's a ton of Criterion Collection content. And as I mentioned before, follow us on Twitter for the polls. That's at Casual Cinecast. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can send us messages to any of those social media accounts, ask us questions about the films we're reviewing, or sorry, got tied up, but message us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com as well. And if you haven't done so already, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and let people know that we're a good show worth checking out.
Oh, and check it out. Spotify just recently added the function to rate podcasts. So rate us on Spotify there as well if you haven't.
Yeah, that's a great place to do it.
Also, Bull Durham, one of my favorite pizza toppings.
Gross. Again.
I thought ham was made from pigs, not bull.
Well, Bull and Durham is what I have on my pizza. All right. Moving on. Sorry about that.
Wow.
All right. News on the March?
Let's go.
News on the March!
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me here in News on the March. It looks like there is a little movie called Bergman Island to talk about. Justin, why don't you get us kicked off here?
Yeah, sure. So I watched this movie this week as we get to the end of the year. We've ended 2021, we're into 2022, so later this month or very early February, we'll be catching up on all these films and doing our best of 2021 list. And so I've been catching up. So this movie I've been meaning to watch for a while, Bergman Island. It's been on my radar. Just I heard interesting things. Of course, it has Tim Roth in it and Vicky Krieps, I guess. Krieps. Don't know how to say her last name, but she's from Phantom Thread. That's
And
where you
Old.
would know her from.
Yeah.
And Old?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Old is one I've yet to watch, so. Well, I look forward to Old even more now because I didn't know she was in it. And she's good in both things I've seen her in so far. But anyways, this is directed by Mia Hansen-Love, or Love. And the IMDb synopsis says, couple retreat to the island that inspired Ingmar Bergman to write screenplays for their upcoming films when the lines between reality and fiction start to blur. And so this is kind of the premise that I knew. And I will say that once this film gets going, it gets very interesting very quickly, but it takes a while to get there for me. And there were times early on in this film that I found myself a little feeling like the movie was a bit of a slog to get through. There's a lot of Ingmar Bergman talk, which I thought I would find interesting, but I really didn't. Yeah, it was weird. I was surprised at how much I was like, okay, that's enough of this, Yeah. But once it gets going, it gets really, really interesting. Once, I won't say what happens, but about halfway through the film kind of takes on some new elements, turns, does some different things, and really becomes interesting and really started to feel like a film that has a lot more going on than I realized, or I felt like I wish I had, could remember everything like verbatim, because I know everything that's going on in like the second half of this movie is probably informed or better informed by things that happened in the first half that seemed a bit slow at the time. So I don't know. It's a difficult movie to wrap my head around in one viewing. I feel like I missed so much, or like not even that I missed it, but that you can't grab it all in one viewing. But Chris, you've also seen this movie. How do you feel about it?
Well, what you said about the second viewing is absolutely correct, because it kind of pulls the wool out from underneath you, or it introduces these new elements that you weren't necessarily expecting after watching the first half, And so you didn't know to look for those things. And it's not necessarily like a power of the dog thing or anything like that, but I think a second viewing is immediately what I thought I was going to need to appreciate this movie more. I do think I enjoyed the first half of it more than you did. I never found this movie a slog.
Did you enjoy the Ingmar Bergman talk?
Actually, kind of, yeah. I mean, like, because there's a bunch of like Bergman nerds essentially, and there's like a Bergman tour bus, and all that I thought was pretty.
The Bergman Nerdman.
Bergman Nerdman, his cousin that never quite cut it. He just did a couple of short films. Anyways, but there's a bunch of like nerds that are like that know everything about Bergman, and they're kind of answering all the questions and having these like debates about Bergman that I found a little bit more interesting, I think, than Justin, and also maybe I saw myself a little bit reflected in it. It's kind of like the film bro, like from Twitter, like explaining everything about Bergman. He's like, nah, well, actually, Bergman wasn't this type of person, or that kind of thing. And yeah. I found it kind of funny and interesting.
Maybe I was too offended to enjoy it.
Yeah, maybe it was calling you specifically out, and you're like, I can't handle it. But yeah, I think a second viewing would be pretty great, and I really liked it the first time. And once it hits that second half, it gets real good, and I really enjoyed it from there. And I think this might be in contention for my top 10. I have a bunch of them that are, probably like 20 films that are like floating around, the top 10. Right. So we'll see what happens when that comes out and what movies I see between now and then. But I really enjoyed the performances from both Tim Roth, and even there's a bunch of new performances that happened in the second half that I enjoyed. So, and I think that the second half is hard to pull off too, is what I would say. I wouldn't, if I knew what was happening, I wouldn't expect to be as enthralled with the second half as I was. And that's about all I can say in non-spoiler talk. And in fact, that's probably gone too far. We're not going to spoil anything or really,
dive too deep into it. What I will say is that I think, at least my interpretation of this, because some of the Bergman talk, while it's a little grating, I think it at points is intentionally grating, as you said, like it's maybe criticizing or calling out people who sort of pontificate and you know, I guess mansplain or whoever, doesn't even have to be a man, I guess, but whatever, go off about film in a way that's a little, I don't know, conceited or arrogant, you know, which hopefully, you know, we do a film podcast, maybe we do. but what I found really interesting was this sort of the themes of these artists going to this island where Ingmar Bergman, this great filmmaker, who they admire and revere, and everybody there does, to work on their film projects, their scripts. And it's like, you know, how do you compare up to the people that you look up to? How do you pull influences from them? What influence do they have on you? What effect do like people like Bergman have? Can you be too into Bergman? And how does that like factor into your work? How do these things influence you? And that's kind of what I found interesting, and I think is something to notice and find even more. And it would probably help to be, you know, more familiar with Bergman's work than I am, because they mention a lot of things, and I think it's, you know, it's shot on the island that Bergman shot all of his movies on. So I'm would almost guarantee that there are shots that are direct references to Bergman films, you know.
It's part of the Bergman cinematic universe.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's just on one viewing, I just don't think I quite got it enough for it to maybe get my top 10, but it's something I would watch again one day.
Yeah. Upon reflection, this is like the one negative thing I'll say about it, is it is about like rich people having rich people problems. You know, they go to Bergman Island to live, to write a movie. You know, like the Tim Roth's character is already a successful filmmaker, and like I was like, I find it kind of hard to empathize with these people. They already, you know, like already have everything, you know, like that I would want.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve empathy, but like I was like, upon reflection, I was like, these people, they have everything.
I know exactly what you mean. And on that note of them being like successful filmmakers, and Tim Roth has a film, and you know, this isn't really giving anything away, but one thing that I thought was like kind of funny and ties into that, you know, how is Bergman influencing them? They worship him, but like you see a bit of Tim Roth's movie. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is just me, but I think it's pretty clearly doesn't really walk in the same park as Bergman's films, you know?
Yeah, it seemed more like 70s horror.
Yeah, and so you have all these people that are talking about Bergman, live on this island, they're visiting it, and they're obsessed with him, and then he shows his film, and everyone's like, oh, this is great, we loved it. And you're like, okay, people, come on. That happens pretty early in the movie, so it's not very spoilery. But there's another just a really interesting moment that made me think about maybe some of the themes, you know?
Yeah, commenting on art, yeah, and how people react to it.
Yeah. But okay. I think that's all I have to say about that. I think it's worth checking out if you're into film at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as I'm preparing for the our Best of the Year episode, which I'm sure is coming soon, it's on my list of things that I've really been wanting to see for a while now.
I recommend it. I think you would at least like it if it doesn't make your top 10, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, cool. Well, you guys have further cemented my need to watch this movie.
Yeah, good. And on that note, do you have anything that you've been watching, Mike?
Yeah, so I actually watched like 3 movies yesterday, which felt good.
Ooh la la.
I know, it was a big day. One of those movies, which I will be reviewing later, is Licorice Pizza. The other one was Red Rocket, which I'm sure we'll talk about on the show at some point soon. But then this last one was a little indie western that has been out for a few months now, and I've heard good things about it. And it's one of like the best reviewed movies of the year on Rotten Tomatoes. So I was like, all right, yeah, sign me up. Not enough westerns come out, so send it my way, you know? And that is Old Henry. And I believe, Chris, you've seen this movie as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so this is a western starring Tim Blake Nelson and Stephen Dorff. Which is interesting, because you don't see a lot of Stephen Dorff. Not enough Stephen Dorff, in my opinion. I always like that guy.
I thought we'd see more of him after True Detective, that 3rd season, because he's real good in that.
He's good in, what was that movie that came out Oh, Somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sofia Coppola film. So, anyways, it's always good to see him when he pops up.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the villain in this movie. So basically, Old Henry is a very simple tale. You know, it's a father and son live alone in the mountains on a ranch. The son wants to leave the ranch and go see the world because he feels like he's being sheltered by his dad. And then all of a sudden, one day, a horse with blood all over it wanders up to their ranch. So they go looking and find a wounded man and a satchel of money. And basically people are hunting that man down. And so they have to kind of decide whether or not they want to give him shelter, etc. So ultimately, I really enjoyed this film. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It's very traditional. It's got, it's like you've seen these themes like explored in Westerns countless times, right? It's just as much Unforgiven as it is, something new, right? Like you've seen this kind of tale before, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Chris, what do you think of this movie?
Yeah, I liked it as well. I was also watching it, to try to catch up on some movies to see if it, would get close to my top 10. I don't think this, is in that orbit. But it's definitely an enjoyable Western. And I think it's anchored by these really great performances from Tim Blake Nelson and Stephen Dorff.
Yeah, if I had to make a top 10 list like a month ago,
yeah,
and I had seen this film, it would probably have made it. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of good stuff coming out. But also, I haven't made the list yet, and I don't know. It could be on my list near the bottom, maybe. I don't know.
Absolutely. I think the thing that holds me back, and you can help me out with this, Mike. I really hated Tim Blake Nelson's son, and I think that's a part of the movie. Like, we're supposed to, because he's kind of like the wet blanket, and he's always doing the dumb stuff. And I also can't tell if it's the actor or if it's the way it's written. And how did you feel about that character?
The performance didn't bother me at all. I found the character to be kind of annoying, but we need him to be from a plot device, right? Because he doesn't understand his dad's motivations, ever. His dad's very withholding.
Right.
And we don't understand the motivations completely, but we get a sense of like, okay, Tim Blake Nelson's hiding something, right? He's hiding a secret, or he's hiding who he really is. And so this kid basically is like living an overly sheltered life. So the whole movie, like the father-son dynamic, is like the son's on the verge of rebellion in every scene.
Everything that the father wants to do, the son is like, nope, that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. So it is annoying because we're like, shut up and listen to Tim Blake Nelson. He's the main character. But yeah, I don't know. The performance didn't bother me so much.
Okay.
But anyways, I don't have too much else to say about it because I think the less you know about this movie, the better going into it, to be honest with you.
It's a solid Western,
it is.
And not like a Power of the Dog type Western. It's like a traditional Western, I guess, is more where that would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good movie to watch with like, your dad or your grandpa or something. Like it's a classic Western in that sense, but, great performance by Tim Blake Nelson, I think.
Mm-hmm. What is the better Tim Blake Nelson Western performance, this or Buster Scruggs?
Buster Scruggs, his performance is just so over the top.
Yeah,
it's like
so farcical.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, honestly, maybe that one just because it's so big and goofy, but this one's very grounded. Yeah. It's like he sounds like he does in well, I guess everything, because he always sounds the same. But I got "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" vibes from his accent in this movie.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah,
always fun.
Yeah. So, anyways, watch it. It's good if you like westerns.
Okay.
It's a nice, simple little tale.
Yeah, I do like westerns.
Yeah, I thought you might. All right, well, that's all I really had. Should we get into the main event, or do we have anything else we want to go over?
Let's get into the main event.
All right, here we go.
Licorice Pizza.
That's right.
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair.
I met the girl I'm gonna marry one day.
But her mommy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go.
Listen, young lady.
But her friend is nowhere to be seen.
So how'd you become such a hotshot
She
actor?
walks through her
I'm a showman. That's what I'm meant to do.
to the seat with the clearest view. And she's hooked to the silver screen.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know who my girlfriend is?
Barbara Streisand?
Barbara Streisand.
Sand.
Sand, yeah, like sands. Like the ocean, like
Barbara
beaches.
Streisand?
No, like Streisand.
Sand.
But the film is a sad thing for.
This is fate that brought us together.
For she's lived it 10 times or more.
Our roads took us here.
She could spit in the eyes of fools.
You're not my director.
They ask her to focus on.
Do you really want to see my boobs?
Can I touch them?
See you tomorrow.
Fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go.
I think it's weird I hang out with Gary and his friends all the time. I think it's weird that I hang out with Gary and his 15-year-old friends all the time.
Take a look at the low man, beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know
I'm not gonna forget you.
who's in the best-selling show.
Just like you're not gonna forget me.
Gross.
Roll sound. Roll camera A. Roll camera B. Mark it. Action. And coming Nancy!
Hello?
All right, so as always with our newer films, we will be doing a spoiler-free section up front. So we're gonna talk generally about our feelings on the film. We won't give away any major plot details or spoiler alerts, probably nothing beyond what you could learn from the trailer or the IMDb synopsis. So if you have not seen Licorice Pizza, you can continue listening until we give you that spoiler warning, play the bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, go watch Licorice Pizza, and then come back and finish listening.
That is correct. So, Licorice Pizza was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It stars Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman. The IMDb synopsis says, the story of Alana Kane and Gary Valentine growing up, running around, and going through the treacherous navigation of first love in the San Fernando Valley, 1973.
Yes, accurate.
It is. It is. I like that synopsis.
Mm-hmm. And
I liked the movie. Spoiler. For my thoughts.
Well, thanks for your thoughts. Next.
Yeah, we can move on now. I'm done.
Yeah. But for real, do you want to go first? Because I think you've seen this movie most recently.
Yeah. I saw it last night. I think you guys live in a larger city than me, so you had access to see it easier and sooner than I did. So This episode is coming out a little, probably like a day later than it would have. Or we're recording it a day later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have always been a Paul Thomas Anderson fan. Since I first started really getting into movies, like buying DVDs and listening to commentaries and watching special features and really trying to brush up on big films I'd never seen. So I remember I'd always loved Boogie Nights, so I went and got the DVD for Magnolia and watched it. And then I believe all three of us woke up early one morning and drove to Dallas to go see There Will Be Blood, the first chance we could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all on record being fans of PTA here, but some of his movies I love more than others, right? So I would say I liked Phantom Thread quite a bit. That was probably one of his better later films. I didn't love Inherent Vice, but I enjoyed it mostly. And I was expecting a little bit more Inherent Vice vibes from this movie, and I'm happy to say I liked it more. I think it's a lot more focused, which is maybe the point of Inherent Vice is its lack of focus. But I think this movie is just a delight, right? The leads are charming. Alana Hayim is just very watchable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not familiar with her and her sisters and her band at all. So this is like my first experience with her, but I really enjoyed her. I think Cooper Hoffman is kind of the unsung hero of this movie. I feel like he's doing a lot, but all I hear about is her performance, you know? And I think he's actually pretty good in this. Bradley Cooper probably steals the movie in his brief time in this movie. But my goodness, what a performance that is. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a wacky, goofy movie. All the good parts of Inherent Vice, like the wackiness and the absurdity, with the focus of like a punch drunk love, or you know. So it's it's mid to high tier P.T. Anderson for me.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, Justin?
Well, I'm not that far off from you, you know. As you've said, big Paul Thomas Anderson's fans here, and
yeah, I hope that was okay to label you guys as Paul Thomas Anderson fans. I hope I didn't overstep my.
Don't put words in my mouth, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Christopher.
You know, if I were to make a list of my top 20 films of all time, it's very likely that 3 or 4 Paul Thomas Anderson movies are in contention to take up those spots, right? So,
right, yeah,
big fan. I've, you know, his later films haven't quite hit me the same as, you know, his films from like There Will Be Blood and before. But I don't know how much that has to do with age and
yeah, just where you are in your life.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. The only films of his that I would say that I don't like really is Inherent Vice, and I might just need to rewatch that one.
I think if you rewatch it, you may not like it, but like there will be moments where you laugh. Like they have to be. Like that. Josh Brolin eating that popsicle is impossible not to like smile at.
Yeah, I'm sure I laughed watching it the first time, but I don't know what I will say. I say all that I guess to say that Licorice Pizza is probably my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film since There Will Be Blood.
Nice.
I think I like it more than The Master or Inherent Vice or Phantom Thread. I think it's just a film that's a little bit more up my alley. You know, Mike, you chose when I went on the Cinemas podcast recently and he asked us to choose Criterion films for each other. You chose Fast Times at Ridgemont High for me, knowing that is very much my type of movie, this sort of hangout movie. It's as much about the setting and the time and like the characters and their growth as it is a plot. And this movie is very similar. You know, it comes from the real life version of Gary Valentine, Gary Goetzman, who was a friend of Paul Thomas Anderson. Supposedly these stories, or the film came from stories that Gary told Paul Thomas Anderson. And the film very much feels like that to me. Like in some ways it reminds me of some of the Fellini films that we've reviewed before, like Amarcord.
Yeah, that's good.
Where, you know, it feels like stories being told. Things are heightened. You know, Bradley Cooper's performance is a shining example of this thing that's a bit larger than life and unrealistic. Yeah. But it works. It doesn't feel silly necessarily in the movie. It doesn't feel like cartoonish for the most part. But I think that sort of movie is very up my alley. So I think that's one of the reasons that this film spoke to me more than some of his other more recent stuff. It's a great time. The performances are really good. I think it looks really great. I love, since There Will Be Blood, one of the things that Paul Thomas Anderson has done more that I think is really cool and is probably showcased the most in Inherent Vice, but this really heavy like film grain look and oversaturated colors. And that's on show in this movie, which just adds to kind of the good time flowiness of this movie, you know? And
yeah, I think one of his best looking movies is The Master, even though that's probably one of his harder to peg down movies, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But everything he's done, like filmed since The Master, I think has this old timey quality to it that just feels like lived in. I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel overproduced, but it also is a little bit larger than life color wise. And yeah, I really like it. And I'll save the rest of it from there because I don't think I have anything to add that hasn't been said already. So, Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, right along there with you guys. I like Paul Thomas Anderson, and that's one of the reasons I'm like kind of trepidatious about these movies. Whenever he comes out with a new movie, like, am I just geared to like his movies more, like because I have such a soft spot for him? Or am I like judging the movie, you know, are the scales tipped in his favor already because I like him so much? You know, like so like a second viewing of this movie would be good. I think I need to put that in there. Oftentimes too with his movies, you know, expectations, he likes to, you know, to surprise you and like play off what your expectations are going to be in like a romantic comedy like this. So like going in and knowing what to expect oftentimes can give you a better perception of the film. What I will say is the film, we've compared it to a lot of things. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think, is a good comparison to this. You know, like just like you were talking about, like these stories, it's episodic. You know, these different things are happening. It kind of takes place in the same time period a little bit. Also, I really hope that this is a prequel to Punch Drunk Love and that Cooper Hoffman will eventually play, you know, like lead into the Mattress Man from Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, no.
I really hope that that's what happens. We can get like a middle movie where Cooper Hoffman gets really
Becoming
angry.
the Mattress Man.
Yeah, turns into the Mattress Man.
Mattress Man begins.
Yeah.
Fat Bernie is dead. Long live the Mattress Man.
And how, like, you know, this is really a prequel story, you know, like an origin story for the Mattress Man, the Mattress Man Cinematic Universe, MMCU.
Yeah. Which, of course, just so everyone knows, you're referencing Philip Seymour Hoffman's character in Punch Drunk Love, in case.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
I really hope that happens. I don't think it's actually going to.
I wouldn't count on it.
But
Yeah.
In my wildest dreams, that's what I want. But anyways, I really enjoyed it. I look forward to talking more about it in spoilers with you guys as we kind of can dig deeper. And I also look forward to my second viewing of it.
Yeah.
And also Bradley Cooper is pretty amazing in this.
Yeah. You know, I think talking about a second viewing of this movie, the one thing that I do feel from this, which is a little bit different from other Paul Thomas Anderson films, or at least most of them, maybe Boogie Nights is kind of the same, but a lot of times I feel like I want that second viewing to really like digest and dive into the themes and figure out what the movie's about. And oftentimes just thinking about his movies in hindsight they'll grow in appreciation as I dissect them in my brain, right? I don't really have that with this movie, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but like Boogie Nights, I want that second viewing because I just want to go experience these times again and hang out with these characters and see these events play out and laugh with them again, or laugh at them in some cases, right? So it's a bit of a different.
I was about to say, this feels like what Quentin Tarantino describes as a hangout movie, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is his best hangout movie since Boogie Nights.
Sure. And I mean, that's what Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is too. I think that's a good, cool hangout movie. And that's why I guess I feel the similarities in between them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Licorice Pizza and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are scratching the same itch for P.T. Anderson and Tarantino, right? It's like nostalgia for movies that they love, the city they love, and grew up in, and they film it in a very loving way.
Mm-hmm. And I think
I feel that,
you know, with Tarantino, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you know, he has these fictional characters that he's invented stuck in alongside real characters. What I think Licorice Pizza does that's really interesting is he has real people, but the names have changed.
Right.
You know, like the names and events have been changed to protect whoever, you know, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
So I think there is more to be gleaned from this movie, or more things to enjoy about it, as if you're familiar with who these people are supposed to be. You know, I mentioned like Gary Goetzman, but also knowing that Sean Penn's character is William Holden and being familiar with William Holden, I think made his stuff
okay,
really
he
fun.
was supposed to be William Holden. I was wondering, I was like, is Jack Holden like what William Holden went by? I didn't realize that. Okay, it was supposed to be so spot on.
It is, and I think if you watch it through that lens, his performance is really fun and really spot on.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense, because that thought did cross my mind whenever I learned his last name was Holden. That's fun. Okay.
Yeah, and then I think there's a Lucille Ball. I can't remember that character's name, but she's pretty early on in the movie, right? Because the person the Gary Gutzman, the real life Gary Valentine, he starred in the film with Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda, Yours, Mine, and Ours.
Yeah.
Oh.
So like that whole sequence, I don't think we're getting anything spoiler. If we are, stop me. But like that whole sequence of them with like the bunk beds, this is in the trailer, and with the redheaded woman, I think it's sort of Lucille Ball-ish and referencing Yours, Mine, and Ours and his performance in that.
Okay, cool. That's fun.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, that's like, I just watched it. Like, I guess I probably could have read about that a little bit more, but I'm glad that you told me that here, because I'm kind of retroactively like going through the movie now and being like, what else did I miss?
Yeah,
when it comes to like these what do you call them? Like allegory characters.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper's character is based on a real person. Again, the name is slightly
I knew
different.
that one.
Yeah, that one's
John Peters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
which, by the way, there's that really awesome Kevin Smith story about John Peters, which I think everyone knows by now. But if you haven't heard it and you thought Bradley Cooper's character was intriguing, go listen to Kevin Smith talk about John Peters.
Right. Yeah. So luckily I saw this in the Alamo Draft House, and they do a great job with their like pre-movie roll and giving you any context that you need. You know, they did a great job with like Last Night in Soho, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then this one.
Man, I'm jealous of these movie viewing experiences you're having at the Alamo.
Yeah, it's worth it for that alone. Like, and they did a long context thing. They even dove into Alana Haim's band and all the work that Paul Thomas Anderson did with them. As well.
Yeah, he's been shooting a lot of their music videos, right?
Yeah, a ton of their music videos, hanging with them in studio, and yeah, so that's like how the relationship developed, and I assume how she ended up being in this movie, because I guess he probably connected with her because she is from San Fernando Valley, as is Cooper Hoffman, but also like he cast her sisters and her parents to be her sisters and her parents.
I saw that. Yeah, which her dad was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I read that most of his stuff was improvised, which is really funny.
Yeah, like, I mean, it makes sense. Like, the whole family seems to be pretty charming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had good chemistry in the movie, so, like, I don't know, it works. I guess P.T. Anderson just, like, befriended the whole family.
Yeah, seems like it. Well, what a friend to have. Fun. I'd be his friend.
Yeah. So, should we talk about like the age difference here, or should we wait till spoilers?
Maybe we can talk about it and then move right into spoilers and finish up, you know?
Yeah, okay.
If we can do that. Because I think I can have a little bit I could say without being spoilery.
Okay, so why don't you say it now?
Okay, so yeah, I left the theater, and I've obviously had read a little bit of the controversy surrounding the difference between Alana Kane and Gary Valentine, which she is, I believe, she says she's 28, I think, at one point in the movie, or 27.
I think she says she's 25, but then at one point she actually says 28, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then Gary Valentine is 15. So obviously there's a bit of illegal stuff, you know, potentially that could happen between them, right? And you know, I left the theater, and my wife who I saw it with, she was like, I don't know, she's like, it's kind of weird, it was kind of creeping me out the whole time, and we were talking, and the way that I viewed it, and this kind of helped her with it, is, as I said before, these are stories that have been told to Paul Thomas Anderson from the real life Gary Gutzman, and the movie is a bit over the top, as though it's somebody embellishing these old stories for like entertainment purposes. So I kind of viewed this through a lens of him telling the story of like, yeah, I was 15 and I had this older woman who was like really into me, you know, and I guess like it was an exaggerated story that may not necessarily be truthful, and more so than this film is an endorsement of a relationship between two people with that sort of age difference. It's more of just an accurate representation of the story, of the over the top, like, ridiculous story.
Well,
does that make sense?
And also, yes, you're right. And also, I feel like we're not supposed to look at this as like a sweeping, like, romance, right? It's not quite what it is. It's this movie is essentially about a grown woman just making poor decisions at every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's funny and we're laughing and we like these characters, but also it is very much about a woman floundering in life and not knowing how to be an adult.
Right.
Like, thematically, like, I think it makes sense why, this relationship exists. And plus, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, like, nothing really illegal happens between them in this movie, right? It's a romance, but it's not at the same time.
Sure. For the most part, it's unrequited. I mean, there is like one moment where probably that it was illegal. But I mean, well, but let me ask you this then: like, if the genders were reversed, would there be a bigger issue with it? And the other thing too would be Cooper Hoffman. So like, Alana Haim is the one floundering, but Cooper Hoffman has everything together too. So like, it's like their maturity level. They may be different in age, and this isn't necessarily an excuse or like saying
it's not an endorsement.
Okay.
It's just a read of the movie.
Yeah, but their maturity level's certainly on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's a hustler and a swindler and like a
yeah. Like he owns a couple of businesses throughout the movie, and she works for him at one point.
And throughout the movie, he's trying very hard to present himself as a grown up while she doesn't know how to be a grown up, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this relationship really sets up perfect for the second movie, becoming Mattress Man.
Mattress Man Begins.
Yeah, the Mattress Man Begins. The age difference is all there. It's all the pieces are there. Paul Thomas Anderson, get it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would add to is that, there's a difference between if this was, supposed to be like the greatest love story of all time, right? And it being two people with crushes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that the movie is necessarily trying to tell us, like, look how amazing this is. Like, isn't this desirable and wonderful and
right,
lovely? And shouldn't we all just be, clasping our hands and saying, "Oh, this is great"? I don't think that's the vibe we're supposed to pull away from.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. But also, go on.
I was going to ask real quick, like, so I brought it up, but what if the genders were reversed? Would we have a bigger issue with it? I don't know if I would or not. I think it would be different. Whether it should be feel different or not, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be different, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, really. Like, it would be different, but at the same time, it's like, and like I said, I don't want to like make it sound like I'm justifying illegal behavior.
Sure.
But at the same time, like we mentioned, Gary is way more put together, has his life together, has ambitions and dreams, and presents himself as more mature than she does, right? And I don't know. I just feel like it's not as... the movie walks a very fine line to where, like, it doesn't feel like a big deal because, well, like, it is, personal accounts, like stories from people he knew. It just is what it is. It's neither right nor wrong. It just,
yeah,
it's
that's
just
the
these
thing.
people.
It's like an accurate depiction of a story that was told.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
And even
and also, like I said, she's a mess. Yeah. I don't think that we're supposed to look at her and be like, I want to be like her and do the things that she does in her life.
And like Justin said, we don't cut to 20 years later where they're like happily married or anything like that. I don't think, like the very end of this film, well, and without spoiling anything, I don't think they may stay friends, but I don't think they ever have a romantic relationship, really. I think they just have crushes, that's just kind of the way it goes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is maybe where we can get into spoilers,
Yeah, let's move
do
in.
it. Okay. Anybody want to rate it out of 5 real quick before we move in?
Solid 4 with room to grow.
Yeah.
Out of 5.
That's what I was going to say. A very loose 4. I don't know where I'll end up.
Yeah, I think I'm in the 4.5, but it hasn't grown much beyond that, It hasn't fluctuated. It's just my type of movie, And
that's a pretty good rating.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Spoilers?
Do it.
Spoilers.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Any more cigarettes you got up there? I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
Real quick, before we get going into spoilers, how about that John C. Reilly cameo? Do you guys spot that?
Oh, that was great. That was wonderful. It's good to have him back, behind
In
or
a
in
P.T.
front of
Anderson
PTA's
movie?
camera.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool, but so yeah, I think I don't want to stay too long on the age difference thing,
No,
sure. I think
we've talked about it a lot.
We've maybe tackled it
and
enough, and I think to answer your question, Chris, of if the genders were reversed, I think it just depends on perspective, because this movie is very much, to me, from Gary's perspective, right? It's, or at least the story being told by an older Gary, and that's what it feels like. And I think that's might be why Alana Haim gets so much of the credit, is because this movie is about her, because these stories are kind of all about her. To me, it's more so than Cooper Hoffman. The stuff that he goes through is interesting, and some of it's funny and entertaining, but the character that I think really does a lot of development and goes through a lot of different emotions and range is Alana Kane.
Yeah, I think she's definitely the heart and soul of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Alana Haim is pretty great too. I love the way she can go from 0 to 60. She snaps so quick. She's really good at that.
Yeah. And snaps back.
Yeah.
And I think the scene towards the end where she gets into the argument with him and she's like, I'm not going to drive you, wherever. And then he's like, hey, fine, I'll take myself. I'll get in the car, drive myself. She's like, wait, what are you doing? I'll drive you. That was one of those scenes that I really felt I felt that narrator telling me what happened and kind of making him seem like, yeah. So then I was like, I'll drive the car myself. And she was like, no, wait a minute. I don't know. It seemed a bit unrealistic, but in a way that that's how the guy would tell the story.
That's interesting. I don't know that I necessarily found it unrealistic, but it was about her bargaining. She's her picking new tactics. She's like, no, I'm not going to drive you. She thinks that that's going to be the end of it, right? And then he's like, well, I'll drive myself. And then so she changed tactics real quick. No, it's okay. I'll drive you. And then, it's just about her. And that's part of one of the things I really like, is how she can change tactics so quickly. It is really great.
Well, yeah, it's that's how I read it too, Chris. It's I read it more as he called her bluff, right?
Yeah,
and then she had to backpedal. So because I think she was like, I'm not going to drive you. How about that? And he was going to be in her brain, his response was like, oh man, I'm sorry, please. And then whenever he left, she's like, well, you know what? Fine. Okay. I will take you after all. You do need me. Because once I think she realized that he was capable of pulling away, she got insecure and wanted to kind of backpedal a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that's something that keeps it from having any sort of feeling of an older person taking advantage of a younger person, is that they're kind of on equal footing. They can kind of test each other and best each other in different moments.
Yeah. And she does. Once she starts working for Benny Safdie, his character, and she starts hanging out with grown-ups and having an important job where she feels like she's actually an adult making it in the world, she starts to pull away from him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Away from Gary. And it's not until she is sort of humiliated at the dinner by being like Benny Safdie's excuse.
Yeah.
I think that she starts to realize that like she's just doesn't click with adults. You know, she's just not good at this whole of being an adult thing. So it's just much easier to hang out with Gary, who is like a pseudo adult, who wants to be an adult and tries, wants to be a regular at a restaurant and like impress his friends by getting martinis for them and
also
all this stuff.
Adores her, like, and is willing, like to do anything for her.
Right. And like doesn't think of her as a fuck up.
Yeah.
Like she thinks of herself.
Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong, but if you go that step above the people who are involved with the political race of Benny Safdie's character, her interaction with Sean Penn, with Jack Holden, is pretty creepy.
For sure.
And, and that's how it goes, because she's too young for that, right? She's kind of taken advantage of or seen as like a target. At least that's how I felt it.
Double or triple the age difference of her but there is a thing, like when you're 15, you're not as mature as you are when you're 25, or supposedly, that, I don't know. It's all wacky.
Yeah. But the Sean Penn scene was very fun. I enjoyed Tom Waits coming in.
Yeah.
And
the way he emerges from that cloud of smoke.
Who's Tom Waits supposed to be? Do we
I
know?
don't know exactly. I'm not sure if he's someone's supposed to be someone real or not. I would guess so, but that one I don't know off the top of my head.
He's just playing Tom Waits.
Yeah, I mean the whole motorcycle jump thing felt like a little bit reminiscent of like Great Escape more than anything I'm familiar with Will Holden from. I can't remember him jumping anything in a bike in a movie that I've seen, but I could be wrong.
That's why I kind of thought maybe it was Steve McQueen, but it only has to do with the motorcycle and the jump.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because they always talk about him being in like the Bridge movie, the Bridge War movie, so it's definitely William Holden.
Yeah.
Referencing Bridge on the River Kwai, of course.
Yeah.
Indeed. Which is a good movie.
But that's just another one of those, like, it feels like this over-the-top Hollywood tale that, like, how much of that is true, and how much of it is you embellishing.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me a lot of, like, you remember whenever we bought the, separately, we didn't do it together, but, like, we bought the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood novel, and at the very beginning, Quentin Tarantino has that dedication, like, it's like based on, like, the stories of, like, the old-timers, like Kurt Russell and, like, all these people, like, that kind of grew up in this time.
Yeah.
It's very much has like this whole like unreliable narrator, fun tales. If you know the movie industry at all, these will be fun little tales. Like one time I went to John Peters' girlfriend's house, Barbara Streisand, and then messed it up, or something like that. Like it has that very insider stories kind of vibe to it, I guess.
Yeah, and definitely what's a myth and what's fact, is part of the fun.
Yeah.
Do I believe that he started a waterbed company and then later in the film he starts his own pinball arcade
at 15? Where is his mom? Yeah, you see her in the background every once in a while, but like she's
always just supportive of whatever he's doing and doesn't even have any problem, even when he's telling Alana Haim to like be sexier on her sales call. She doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
At least he's out of the house and doing something.
Making something of himself.
One of the scenes I really liked was when they ran out of gas with the truck, and she has to coast all the way down and it's just so tense and exciting. I thought that was real fun. I mean, that whole sequence with Bradley Cooper is just pretty fun. That's probably the highlight of the film, that sequence there.
Yeah, I think the other thing that maybe I enjoyed, in terms of like side things that aren't our main characters, I really enjoyed Skylar Gisondo, who played Lance, the guy who flew with them to New York to do like the yours, mine, and ours bunk bed thing.
Yeah.
The older kid.
The older kid who was hitting on Alana Haim. and then he ends up like going to dinner with her and her family. He was incredible, and the only thing that made me sad immediately was when the movie was over, and there was much less of him than I thought there was going to be at one point, because he just killed it for me, and it was super funny.
Yeah, where he's just like very bluntly, he's like, I'm an atheist.
But you're Jewish. I was born Jewish, but
but my path led me to atheism or something like that. My own personal path.
Yeah, the confidence with which he does that to like at dinner with her, meeting her parents for the first time, was amazing to me. It was really great.
Dude, and when Alana comes home like in the swimsuit, and her dad is like, "What the?"
Oh yeah, that's good. I love the audition scene where he's like in the vest trying on like the suit or whatever.
He turns it around.
Yeah. And then they give him the extra line, and he just like, that's how I would have auditioned. Like he's just like real excited. It's just the excitement. There's no nuance or anything to it. He's just, but I also like the audition scene. It wasn't really audition. It was meeting the manager or the agent for Alana Haim's character. The actress, I think she was in Phantom Thread.
Oh, she's... Well, I know her from Frasier. She plays Frasier's agent.
Okay.
BB, and she, every time she shows up in a Frasier episode, she just absolutely kills. She basically does like a Katharine Hepburn impression.
Yeah, she was really good in this. I mean, she had like 5 minutes, and I think that's one of the things that Paul Thomas Anderson really got right here is like everybody that came in, like we had these two newbies, and Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim, but he brought in all these like supporting characters that just nail it. Tom Waits, I don't even know her name, but that girl in the agent scene is really good too. Just a lot of like Bradley Cooper, a lot of great extra performances that you talk about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just to go back to what was the kid, the Jewish kid that went to atheism?
His name was Lance in the movie. Skylar Gisondo is the actor's name.
Yeah, I've seen him in a couple other things, and he never really stood out. But this is where I'm like, okay, he can do a lot more. He's real good,
Yeah, it's not a great movie, but I enjoy him. He's probably my favorite part of the Vacation reboot with Ed Helms.
Okay,
he's the son.
I forgot about that thing.
I like it. I'm sorry. Apologies, everybody. I
I'm trying to remember. There's something about it that I was like, this is not for me. Like an obstacle course or something.
Yeah. There's some bad stuff in there, and that's what you're talking about is definitely one of the bad parts.
Okay.
But we don't have to go into too deep into that. But he was in that like social media documentary that was on Netflix for a while. I can't remember what it was, but it was very anti-social media. They were interviewing like former like CEOs and like executives of Twitter and Facebook. And how
what was that thing called?
I cannot remember, but he's
something like that.
Social experiment or something. Yeah, whatever it was. He's like in the reenactments of like a kid who's getting addicted to social media and gets like radicalized.
Yeah, all right.
Which is not a comedic role for him, really. Not as funny as he is in this in Vacation.
That's funny.
Yeah, those reenactments or whatever, like the little side stories in that documentary felt very like after school special. It was weird.
Sure.
Yeah.
That whole
Definitely
movie,
weird.
I think, is kind of... I mean, not that what it's saying isn't accurate, but it did feel after school special.
It's educational, but corny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess speaking of people who come in and out, I think we probably want to just touch on it a little bit with John Michael Higgins' role as the owner of the Japanese restaurant with the wives who are Asian. Because there is a bit of controversy.
He seems like
over
a
this.
very nice husband.
Yeah, he seems really caring and thoughtful.
Yeah. I like how he's just such an asshole. Like later on, they're like, "What'd she say?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't speak Japanese." Like he takes like, no time whatsoever to like communicate with his wife.
Yeah, and the way that he does is so silly. Like, and that's the controversy, right?
Yeah. So a lot of Asian Americans and not just them, a lot of people have been kind of bristling at that character, just I guess because of the caricature voice that he does when speaking to his wives.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, I guess if you're in this part of the review, you, listener, have likely seen the movie. But, so I don't think we have to, like, tiptoe around it or anything. But, yeah, what did you guys think of this? Does this strike you as particularly insensitive or racist? And then with the caveat that none of us are Asian American or Asian. And,
yeah,
so our grain of salt here with everything we say.
Yeah. My take is, and I think this is that, like, if you're of Asian descent and you haven't seen great representation of yourself on screen, hardly ever, if at all, and you see something like this, even if it's well intended, I could understand why you would be a little bit prickly about it. I understand that the guy's an asshole, you know, and what, you know, why it's in there. But I guess I can see a legitimate reason to be upset about this, because there's not representation. Like, in a perfect world, sure, it'd be fine. But, like, if there's not enough representation of you, and when there is representation of you, it comes across like this, I can understand why you'd be a little bit prickly about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, completely. No one is wrong for feeling the way they feel in reaction to that scene. You know, obviously, if it pains you or causes you grief, then, you know, that sucks. That's unfortunate, because no one should have to feel that way or have their guard up, you know, when watching a movie, or feel like the movie's punching down. Now, that said, from my perspective, there's no way that you're supposed to like that character or that man.
Agreed.
Like, there's no read on this movie where I don't think that the audience is supposed to think anything other than, wow, what a complete dickhead. You know,
like what an idiot, what a racist. Like,
what
dummy.
a condescending, like, asshole, basically. Like, so
yeah,
I very much, like, thought the joke, you know, was pretty clear. It did get a laugh in my audience, and I don't think anyone was laughing at the funny Asian voice or whatever. You know, like, I think they were all felt bad for the women that he forces himself upon, or forces into his life, you know, with them. You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I
think poor women.
You're supposed to be laughing at how bad of a person he is, you know, as opposed to laughing with him, of like, you're not laughing that he's doing that and like, look how funny his voice is. You're laughing at the fact that anyone would even do that and like act that way.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, it's like, it's uncomfortable. Like, someone behind me was like, Jesus Christ. Like, in the theater. So
it's surprising. And whether or not that works for you and whether or not that is successful, that is subjective, of course. And like, I wouldn't tell anybody that they're wrong for feeling any way about this. You know, what I will say is, you know, it's a far cry from Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany's, because
oh god, this is the worst part of that movie.
Yeah, if he was supposed to be Asian and doing that, then problem, right? No doubt.
Yeah,
yeah. If he had been Asian, yeah.
So like, when we say is this, are you represented poorly by this? Like, he's not supposed to be an Asian person. He's not pretending to be an Asian person. He is very much a dumb white guy doing this for whatever racist reason is in his character's head, right? And
just like lack of respect, lack of self-awareness.
Yeah, but these things can be taken the wrong way, right? You know, like something like Chappelle's Show doing the stereotypes in order to try to call attention to how silly they are can backfire and can go the wrong way. So is it a great idea to do it? Maybe not. I wouldn't do it in a movie that I was making, but it's also, you know, with many things, this movie, things come in and go out, and there's a lot more of the movie to consider.
Yeah. The age thing, sorry to interrupt, but like with the age thing, I think there's a time and place that this movie takes place in. It doesn't necessarily justify it, but in that time and place, it was more accepted. Which
the age thing, probably this Probably too, because look at Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, well,
Which was
think
before
things
this, but
were a lot
whatever.
more racist back then. Hopefully we're progressing in the right direction. But yeah, I don't know. Once again, like, I'm overrepresented in media, being a white guy, middle-aged white guy. So I don't know what it would be like to, like, get excited to see yourself in media, and then all of a sudden you see yourself like represented poorly like this, like well, I say that in a way that you perceive as poorly, like, and I guess that's an interesting debate to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it's messy, but also, it's like, it feels honest to an extent that, like, some middle-aged white man in the 70s would be an ignorant racist. Like, I think that's what is trying to be portrayed there, and that's how I took it.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Like I said, none of us are Asian, and like Chris said, I'm overly represented in all kinds of media. So, take what you will, my word for whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Stop making white guy movies. It's so much more interesting. Let's get some more representation in there. Like, I'm tired of white guy movies.
Yeah. So, I think maybe if there had been more Asian characters in the cast elsewhere to, like, look down on it, or maybe if we would have gotten a close up of one of the wives rolling her eyes or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have taken the edge off, but who knows? People aren't wrong to feel the way they feel, and I think it's unfortunate. But that said, my audience did laugh, and the joke did work for me. But also, like I said, it was entirely at the expense of that asshole, not anyone.
Yeah,
like that. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and honestly, I think these conversations are good to have. When these, and I'm not that Licorice Pizza is a big movie, but like when these bigger directors come out and they do these things, or they put, it's good to have these conversations. I think, like, how do we feel? The internet, everything's vitriolic, and like, it's either yes or no. You're all in or all out type of thing. But I think it's good to have a nuanced conversation about this, such as we are trying to have now.
Yeah, and I think it's also probably, worth noting that while I use an example like Breakfast at Tiffany's that was, made a long time ago, we maybe should still have these conversations, because it's not like we're totally past that, because you can go back to something like Transformers 2 and see horrible racial stereotypes in a mainstream movie, and that was not very long ago.
True, yeah.
So I also don't want to come across as saying that, like, look how bad it was, and this isn't that. Like, we're not that far removed from horrible things being put into movies.
True enough.
Indeed. So, do we have anything else we want to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
A movie called Licorice Pizza. This is, I think, that'll be the last thing that I have, at least. I didn't ever see him go into that record store. Did they go into Licorice Pizza? Because isn't Licorice Pizza supposedly a record store that was in San Fernando Valley in that time?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it was a record store that I think was named after an Abbott and Costello skit.
Okay.
Or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. But weirdly named. I think it had a different title at one time. It wasn't always called Licorice
Soggy Bottom,
Pizza.
I think, was the original.
Yeah, that's right. It was the working title for a while, which also wouldn't have made sense. So,
yeah. Oh, and the music really kicked ass. I like the music. Needle drops, as they say.
Yeah. Did it make you want to buy a waterbed, this movie?
What's to say I didn't already have one?
True. It made me remember how ridiculously stupid waterbeds are.
Yeah, I used to have one when I was a kid, and I don't miss it at all.
Yep. My parents had a waterbed, and I remember, like, it would leak, and then we'd have to, like, go get a hose, and it was crazy. You have to do a lot of work on those things.
Yeah, as someone who likes a firm mattress, waterbed feels like a nightmare to me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But also, Licorice Pizza, I think...
But what about a fat-burning waterbed?
If you could lose weight while you...
That was the implication that he was going with in his advertisements.
Oh, okay.
Remember, he's such like a skeezy salesman. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but Licorice Pizza, I guess the name is just to invoke
A time and place.
Yeah, a time and a place when Licorice Pizza existed, and probably means a lot to somebody. You know, it's like someone coming up to saying Blockbuster Video, right?
Yeah, it's like we said at the beginning of the movie. Like, this is very much a love letter to the city that he loves and grew up in, and kind of has always heard stories about. Like, this is some of those, you know, in Hollywood legends that insiders talk about, you know, and so it's very much trying to invoke nostalgia for him, I'm sure, you know, and everyone else who was in that area at the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure if I was like a native Californian and had always like lived there and grew up there, this movie would hit different, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so would the title.
Yeah.
And with that,
Indeed.
anything else? Are we done?
We are done.
Yeah, we could be done.
Okay. Well, thank you, listeners, so much for listening. Of course, as always, thanks Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Stay tuned to this feed. Our next episode will be a casually criterion over the film Mikey and Nicky.
That's right.
Yeah, and then soon after that, I'm sure we'll be doing our top 10, or top, maybe not top 10, but top films of the year, right?
Yeah, the end of the month. There's like two groups of people in this world. There's like the critics that see all the movies in advance. Like, the worst person in the world doesn't even come out till February, so we won't get a chance to see that. Anyways.
It's the people that have seen everything and drop their lists on December 31st at 11:59 p.m. And then there's people like us, so that when all that stuff finally comes widely available down here in Texas, we can see it and then do our best of list at the end of January.
Yeah, we like to do it when nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, though, a lot of podcasts do it at the end of January, and I always appreciate those more because it gives a guy like me a chance to see these movies before they pop up at the end of the year lists, right? So
yeah, sure.
There's an audience out there for it.
Yeah, this is a hobby for us, so we have to take some time to do it. If we were doing this full time, we'd get it out in December. We'd be as good as those other people.
Then we'd be press.
Yeah.
Which I'm not opposed to. If anyone wants to help make that happen.
I'll take some screeners if someone wants to put my name on a list.
At Fantastic Fest, I'm sure nobody's listening to this, but I did sneak into a press screening.
Oh, so sneaky snake.
I'm basically press.
They're going to come break your knees now.
Right. Well, we should probably end this before we incriminate ourselves further.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.